Hello, everyone. Welcome to Women Who Code Lightning Talks. My name's Alaina, and I'm the CEO of Women Who Code. We're an organization dedicated to inspiring women to excel in technology careers. We have a fantastic lineup of speakers tonight, some who are tech luminaries, leaders in the industry, and some who are shooting stars or rockets who are starting off their career, and we're really excited to see where they go. So I'm so excited to see a great group of women and gentlemen here this evening to hear our great speakers. So a huge thank you to Yelp for hosting this evening. They are one of our biggest supporters and have offered this great space this evening. So Women Who Code is on Twitter, @WomenWhoCode. Please tweet tonight. We're also on Facebook, so we're going to be taking photos and putting them online, so please go in and tag yourself. I'm Alaina, @Alaina, and my email is alainapercival@gmail.com if anybody wants to email me about anything. So Women Who Code has gone global this past year. We're now in 12 countries. This map right here represents the countries that we're in currently. We're growing by about 1,000 women per month. We're more than 10,000 currently, and we're launching in a new city every single week. This is the great lineup of speakers that I mentioned earlier. You'll get to meet them all later on tonight, so keep going. So Women Who Code, we got a new website recently, www.code.org. Please, everyone go and visit it. We are now able to accept donations, and we try not to charge our members for anything. So if you'll tweet asking your community, let them know what Women Who Code has done for you. Ask your company. I get emails all the time from people saying, hey, so-and-so, my wife, my sister, my husband is working for this nonprofit, please donate, and I do. So you guys could do it too. Also, if your organization sponsors the tech industry, we are a fantastic organization changing lives, and please suggest that Women Who Code be an organization that they donate to. And none of this could be done without the team who runs Women Who Code, and this is only a very, very small number of the faces that help Women Who Code run. At the top are the executive team at Women Who Code. In the center, faces that you'll probably recognize because they're some of the women who run Women Who Code, and the third row is actually our global co-founders, faces of our global co-founders, and there's about 50 of them, so I couldn't fit them all onto that page. So with that, I'll go ahead and introduce our first speaker this evening. Maryann is a VP of engineering at Brilliantorg. She's worked the full stack. She's done front end, back end, and mobile, and she's going to be talking about hybrid apps. That it's the best of both worlds today. Thank you. Test. Do you need that?
Sure. can just do it from here. All right, so this. Got it. Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm Maryann. Like Alaina said, I run the engineering team at Brilliant.org, which is a community of people who love math and science. So when people come to Brilliant, they find really hard problems in math, physics, computer science, and engineering, and they come because it's challenging and fun for them to solve those problems and to discuss it with like-minded people. So it's basically a community of really intimidatingly smart kids, kids of all ages. So we've had a website for a while, but we recently launched our first Android app, and we ended up using a hybrid. Oh, hang on. All right. Well, okay. Oh, it went away. So we ended up using a hybrid approach, which means it's kind of somewhere in between a native app and a web app. So what a hybrid app is it is a native app. You write it in Java, you upload it to the Play Store. It has deep phone integration, like push notifications and access to the hardware buttons and, access to photos and sharing with your contacts. So it acts just like a normal app, but a lot of our UI is actually rendered in a web view control. So basically, everything in the white background here is a page on Brilliant.org, and it's in this component that essentially sticks a browser inside your app. The black bar at the top is a native Android action bar. So this actually enabled us to get an app out much more quickly than if we had to port our entire site into a native Android interface. So one of the reasons that this approach really worked well for us is because we had already invested quite heavily in building a full mobile web version of our site. And we realized that with just a few tweaks, we could fork that part of the code base and get it Android app ready. So, using our existing team expertise, which we have a great couple of front-end engineers and no Android UI engineers, so that was something that we would have to learn. This kind of approach helped us use the technical assets of our team. Because Brilliant is a problem-solving site, a lot of our UX is very content-driven. So, people are coming, they're reading stuff, and they're solving. But it's not too, touch interaction-based. I think that if you had a heavy game mechanic, or you're, cropping and editing photos, those types of views, you might have to go with a native view first. And that's actually one of the great things about a hybrid app is that you can have some of your views be web views and some of your views be native views, and they can kind of live side by side. Let's see. Okay, I went too fast. There are a couple challenges with a hybrid approach. Web pages, it's hard to get them to feel like an app. There's kind of a responsiveness lag. So you have to kind of overcome that or just kind of accept that a little bit. And then also offline mode. It's kind of the bane of app developers, and web views do not get you out of it, so you still have to do that work. All that said, the downsides were totally worth it because we were able to push up the launch date of our app by months compared to if we had to rewrite our entire app natively. Our users do not care that it is essentially a web page inside of an app. They love it. And then, we are able to gather feedback and iterate while our users are able to enjoy our app. And, over time, we will probably nativize views one by one as the product demands. But anyway, so in conclusion, if you have a product and you already have a mobile website, or you're considering launching on lots of platforms all at once, this hybrid approach is something that you should consider. Thank you.
So are there any questions in the audience for Maryann or about hybrid apps?
Hi, we do the exact same thing. And one thing we noticed in our reviews was that there's some people, they're like, you haven't updated your app in like 3 months. And we're like, we're updating it like every day. Do you actually push an update just to like have it update in the store, or is that just not something you care about?
You know, we have not had to artificially, sorry a second. We haven't had to artificially just push an update yet. We've had enough native bugs and things we've wanted to add that we end up pushing an update every week. But, you know, our app has also only been out for a month, so I wonder if we will hit that wall, and then maybe we'll start doing that. But that's a good point.
One last question. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
So Maia is the CTO and co-founder of RocksBox, and I'm actually a member, and it didn't have anything to do with her being here this evening. I just like the service myself. But I will go ahead and let her take it away.
It's okay if my slides don't work. I don't really need them. Hi, I'm Maia Bittner. I'm a co-founder of RocksBox, and RocksBox is trying to make it easier for women to be stylish. So what we're working on right now is we have a team of stylists. Our members sign up on the website and they tell us about their style, and our stylists choose 3 pieces of jewelry that they think are going to look amazing on them. And they send it to them, and our members can wear it out. They wear it as much as they want. So they can wear it to work, and they can wear it to hot dates and out with their friends. And if they want to buy anything, then they can buy it. Whenever they get bored of it, they send it back to us, and we send them a new set of jewelry. So this is still loading. I think I have too many things open on my computer. Can you start the presentation? Either way, this is a picture of me holding 7x7 magazine when we were written up in it. It's very exciting. My title is CTO. It's a really fancy way to say that I'm the only technical person at my company. We have 10 employees right now. Most of them are working in fulfillment. It's a ton of work to ship out. We ship hundreds of packages a day. And since we have this Netflix-like component, we're also receiving hundreds of packages a day and checking that inventory back in and cleaning the jewelry, and it's a huge amount of work. So most of our team is on fulfillment. We're about 2 years old. We recently raised our seed round, 1.5 million. That was in February. Thank you. I'm very, very excited. And I often get asked the question, people ask me, they say, how can you be the only technical person at the company? How can you write all the code and do all the QA? And so I thought this talk would be a really good opportunity to answer that. The way that I do this is I focus, I kind of call my philosophy, there we go, nails, not wood. And what that means is I focus on attaching together components, pre-built components, almost store-bought. And this is either SaaS software that I pay for, or open source software, which is very high quality and widely available. And I spend most of my time just attaching those pieces together. An example of what wood is, look, this is great. I have my notes here and everything. So we use Recurly to process all of our payments. We use EasyPost to print all of our shipping labels and manage the tracking of all of our shipments. We use Customer.io to send automated emails. We use a ton of different developer services. So that's what I mean by these like big existing pieces of functional code. This is, back at this slide. Yeah, thanks. This is my guy behind the curtain. This is reasons why it's really tempting to build things yourself, and that's why it's hard for me to focus on the nails. For me, the biggest one is it feels really good, right? Like when I write code, I feel really cool, and I'm like, look at what I wrote. Sometimes if I want to feel extra cool, I change my Vim color scheme to be the like green text on black, and I'm like, I'm in the Matrix, look at all the code I wrote. And mostly, when a problem comes up, we're like, oh, we need to send emails. I'm like, ooh, I know how to do that. I can write code that will automatically send people emails. And I know immediately how to do it. And it seems really cheap because I already have the tools I need to do it. I have Vim and I have a computer and I'm already set up, and it's really fast because I can start working on it right away. And it's hard to find if there's existing solutions. Like maybe there are ways to send automated emails to people, but I don't know how I would find them. Stack Overflow doesn't really have it. It's hard to find. So next slide. Yep. It turns out that's not the case. It is actually faster to spend time looking for existing solutions. And I always tell myself, spend more time than I think I should looking for a solution that's already built. And it's actually cheaper. We pay Customer I/O $150 a month. And the time of technical people is so valuable that $150 a month is cheaper than them spending almost any time thinking about something. It's more secure and it's more performant. The performance issues, I think, get bigger as your company gets bigger. And so you can start out being really small and building your own solution, and it will work fine. And then as your company grows, your solution starts being not good enough. And the secure, yeah. Whatever, got it. This is one of my favorite examples of how I focus on the nails and attach things together. So we use a company called EasyPost to generate our shipping labels. And this, I know it looks like a stock photo. This is actually Nicole. She's my colleague. She's amazing. She was like Miss Silicon Valley. And Nicole manages all of our customer support now. So we use a program called SupportFoo to manage our customer support. And what I did is I connected EasyPost and SupportFoo so that every time Nicole opens a ticket in SupportFoo, it says the shipping status of that customer's last shipment. So it says this was delivered, or it's still in transit, or it's been lost by the Postal Service. And so if someone emails us and they say, my shipment has usually arrived by now, and Nicole sees that the status is delivered, she can say, it has been delivered, do we have the right address for you? And she's much faster because of that. And so I'm just leveraging this existing functionality between them. It involves a bunch of webhooks and API calls, and just connecting those two together. Next slide. This is just a screenshot from Segment.io. I just wanted to tell you about this tool if you don't know it. If it exists, it's amazing. You can't see here, these are actually just toggles to turn on different services, and it connects services in a really powerful way. So one of my favorite things that Segment.io does for us at RocksBox is it connects our Optimizely account to our Mixpanel account. What that means is Optimizely is where we do all of our A/B tests. And so it tracks how many customers viewed version A of our homepage versus version B. Now, Mixpanel tracks a huge number of other customer attributes and analytics and tracks them on an individual basis. So what we can do is we can see how much customer revenue we have based on the version of a homepage that someone saw a year ago when they signed up in our Optimizely thing. And that's really, really powerful for us. Next slide. This is actually another screenshot. It's a service called LeanStack. This is our profile on LeanStack, actually. We use all of these developer services, and LeanStack lists the services that lots of companies are using. So you can go on and you can see what services Airbnb is using, you can see what services Pinterest is using, and you can see what services RocksBox is using. So that's how I've managed to be the only technical person. And I think that connecting existing solutions is a really powerful way to leverage a finite amount of time that developers at startups often have. So I recommend it.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Sorry, I didn't.
So how did you come to be the only technical person in the office? Because, it's very tempting to go, oh, let's get a programmer and all of that. But how did they come up with you?
That's a good question. I wasn't actually hired as a technical person. I was hired as a UX designer. And then I joined on as a co-founder. and the CTO and the person who builds everything. And the reason we're looking for an engineer to hire now. It's tough to find engineers, and that's how we've done it so far. I also manage all of our operations, which is also not the long-term plan. We're looking for someone to be our VP of operations, if you know anyone. But yeah, it's just because we've been small in a startup.
We have time for one more question. Is that it? Thank you very much. So next, I'm very proud to present Kane. She is the CTO of Social Chorus, but more importantly, not really. She's on the board of Women Who Code, and she also runs an amazing apprentice program twice a year where she brings in junior developers, amazing women and men who are ready for their first role as an engineer, and the people who've gone to work for her have all finished and become engineers after that. So yeah, if you're thinking about your first role as an engineer, you should definitely talk to Kane afterwards.
Hi, my name is Kane. Wow. My name is Kane Baccigalupi, and that sounds like a ridiculous name, and in fact, it is. It means kiss of the wolf in Italian. Kisses of the wolves, actually. And I'm the CTO at Social Course. And I got to say, the best thing about being the CTO at Social Course is the logo is actually pink and purple. And so I have 6 engineers that are men on my team and 4 that are women. And they all have to wear a pink, ridiculous hoodie. And it's good for them. They really actually appreciate it, this point of pride. Like, my CTO is a woman and I wear this pink hoodie. But what I wanted to talk about today was service on Rails. And I feel like there's kind of 2 question marks in there, like one, service, and why would you do it on Rails? And so by service, I mean service-oriented architecture, and Rails is Ruby on Rails. But why would you do services on Rails? And so that's what I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit. So I think when every app starts, and this happens with your own projects, it happens in startups, it happens even in big projects. It starts as this cute, adorable little app, and everything is exactly as you intended it, and everything is known. And in fact, it can just all live in your head. You don't even need tests, and then it grows up, and it gets a little sad and a little overweight, and it doesn't move as fast as it used to. And in fact, there's lots of people like behind it kind of pushing it, and it's still not moving very fast. And then things get really out of control. And I actually, like, before I was the CTO at Social Course, I was a consultant for them, and my job for a while had been coming in at companies that had gotten to the stage and trying to fix it for them. And so I'm gonna say, things can get too big, and they get too big really fast, but that's not necessarily services. There's like a kind of earlier step in that, which is, in general, you have many apps inside of your one app, and you can usually tell that because you've got several types of users that are interacting, and they have like completely different interfaces. And this probably personally from using an admin app that also has some like user-facing kind of thing. And that was one of the first things that we did when I got there. Actually, the first day I was like, oh no, do not put that, new user-facing app inside of your existing admin app that already has 7 other things in it. Let's move it out. But the thing that happens with these kinds of, huge, monstrous apps is that, they have things related to them that grow up and are necessary. And this is where your services come in. And so let me just give you some examples of some services that we actually use. We deal with external, I guess I should have said that. Social Chorus connects advocates with the brands that they love. So we have, believe it or not, an AT&T employee program, because people at AT&T, you may not love them all the time, but they love their company. And we have like a bunch of other great, and I make fun of AT&T, but they really do have a great enthusiastic group of advocates inside and out. So anyways, you end up with all these things. And one of the things that we do is go to these social networks and find out like where these advocates have been posting off platform. There's in platform stuff, and then we kind of go and scrape. And so you can imagine that for each network, we have like a whole bunch of work to do. And at one point, in this one, we had, every single network and every single thing that you can imagine happening inside the app. And so we had like a series of background processes, and background processes are just not as good as separate services. Because when you get a separate service, you have to just kind of isolate it. It has to get really profoundly stupid, and with that stupidity comes simplicity. So we have like an application, well, a service for every single network that we deal with that is fairly uniform, and its job is to just either post out to the outside world or to get information. And actually we've used a kind of good adapter pattern, so all we have to do is kind of like fit the pieces in, like, oh, this API talks like this, and then we get it all going. And so, yeah, unhappy cheese people. And then they're like, their cheese is back. And so then there's the second part, which is, why on earth would we do this in Rails? Rails is like this huge application infrastructure. It has like UI, it has an asset pipeline, it has all this stuff. And here's why. Uh-oh, what happened to the cheese? And then, more things disappear. And like, where's my stuff, right? It turns out that when you have these services, you also need to have a bunch of monitoring. And Rails comes with fast, easy UI. So we started out and we had like Node, and Node was falling over, and we had no easy way to just like kind of pop up a website that was just like, well, actually, you have no connection to the database, right? Or these jobs that you've been sending out are not happening. And so with Rails, because we were all comfortable with it, it was very easy to get those kind of things going. So the other thing is that our team, I mean, they know JavaScript really incredibly well, but they know Ruby, and that it comes with this just out of the box really great thing. So it led to really fast development for us. And at this point, we have about 30 code bases, like, 10 of them are gems that are out there in the world. And some of them are related to the service-oriented stuff, like how to manage, like, all these application bases. We have a gem for that. And we have the biggest advance, like actually in the service-oriented world, has been not trying to connect via HTTP requests, but actually like putting things on a messaging queue. And for us, we use RouteMQ, and we have like a little gem that wraps it. But the rest of our apps are significant and big. So everybody gets happy. They get their cheese and their wheel and their water, and the next thing that gets invented, which is maybe like a cage cleaner or something like that. And so that's why you should do services when you need to. I will say that. Wait till you're like out of control and it takes 10 people to push you, and that you should try it on Rails or whatever framework you use for your web.
Do we have any questions for Kane?
Well, I'm just curious. So I think that's awesome and makes a lot of sense. Since Rails is this like big app infrastructure, did you guys strip out a lot of the vanilla Rails components for your services app, like stuff that you didn't need?
We actually didn't, because what we have is like some really lightweight processes that are pure Ruby. And then we have monitoring that's in the same universe. So we, like this abstraction that we have around RabbitMQ is called Superbolt. And so it sends messages, and then it really simply listens on that queue. And usually there's one single object that's responsible for responding to a message. So that's operating on a separate queue really lightweightly. And so our monitoring happens only with the UI.
Great, thank you, Kane. So next we have Maia. She has come to software engineering via a non-traditional path. She started off, she learned to be an engineer at Dev Boot Camp, and then she did an internship with Wikimedia, and she's now working with Meteor. So big welcome to Maia.
Hi, so I'm Maria, and this presentation is about my first foray into open source. Several months ago, I'd never contributed to an open source project before, and I was really intimidated and didn't know what it would be like. And actually, for the past several months, I've been interning for Wikimedia through a program called the Gnome Outreach Program for Women, which sets women up with internships in a variety of different open source organizations. And this talk is a little bit about what it's like to be a first-time contributor to an open source project, but also I think it's applicable to anyone getting on board on a project for the first time. So I just have a few key points. So the first thing that I would say is that having a mentor in this internship really helped. So before we start the internship, in order to even apply for the program, we actually have to go off and find a mentor who's committed to working with us through the duration of the program, which is about 3 to 4 months. And the mentor is sort of a combination of a boss and a guide to the code base. So the mentor gives you specific tasks and, tracks your progress on those tasks. But they also were there to answer any questions that you might have. And so, when I was doing this internship, I spent about 6 hours every week just talking to my mentor. And more importantly, a lot of times people would get engaged in these vigorous debates about my code and how I should be implementing things, and I wouldn't understand half of what they were saying. So there would be these really long, 5-hour IRC debates. I don't know if it's just at Wikimedia or if it's like this in general, but I would have this huge IRC chat transcript of a massive debate, and I wouldn't understand half of it. So at that time, it was really great to be able to go over that with my mentor and have him translate everything for me. So, that way I got to people got to express their points of view without feeling held up because I didn't understand things, but I also got to go over it afterwards and have my mentor explain it to me. So having a mentor was great. The second thing that I learned, although it took me a few weeks, was that I don't have to understand the whole thing. So I'm a naturally curious person, and I usually stay up really late at night if I don't understand a thing. Unfortunately, this thing was 10 times bigger than any previous code thing I'd ever worked on. When I started working on Parsoid, I spent about 3 weeks not really writing any code at all, and just sort of feeling intimidated by the project. But after a while, I realized that I was able to make a pretty small contribution because I'd been assigned a task that was really specific. And all I really needed to do was just find the right file and write about 10 lines of code, and it would be all right. And so I think that in general, especially at the beginning, it's good to sort of start out with small but pretty frequent commits, and then you can sort of use those files and functions as a starting point in order to understand the rest of the code base. I think a corollary to that is that in the beginning, it's important to keep your patch sets small. And so, while I started out with these pretty small patches, which were great, at some point I graduated to a function I graduated to this logging function that was actually supposed to be used across most of the code base. And that was a bit more difficult. So, it spans something like 23 different files, and it took people about an hour to review, and no one really wanted to review it. So I had to wait quite a while before I got feedback back. And then the other thing was that with something so massive, the possibility for error just increased exponentially. And so there were always things that I'd overlooked. And so it took something like 7 weeks and 31 patch sets before the thing finally got merged. And I called it the never-ending patch. I felt as if I spent, the majority of my internship just toiling away at that patch. And I think if I were to do it all over again, I would say, as an intern or a first-time contributor, I would either not, work on a patch that affects the majority of the code base, or I would have just gone one file at a time. So if I were to do it again, I would probably just, write that function once, implement it in one file, and make that the first patch set, and then make all the subsequent patch sets scoped to just 1 or 2 files. And then the final thing that I'd like to make is that it's important to know who the key decision makers are. And that can be really difficult in an open source project when you have a lot of external collaborators. It's also a little bit difficult at Wikimedia because it has this culture of collaboration and consensus. And in the beginning, it seems as if everyone's opinions are equal. But that's not, in fact, the case. And, on the Parsoid project, at the end of the day, it was the team lead whose opinion mattered the most. It took me about a month to realize that this was the case. And so I was sort of puzzled, like, how come none of my stuff is getting merged in? So, after a while, I trained myself to actually just, make sure that the team lead knew what I was doing and seek his opinion so that I wouldn't have to rewrite my code a million times. And so I guess to wrap up, as a result of my internship, I learned a few things about, how a parser works and about more JavaScript and about how Node works. But at the end of the day, I feel like what I really learned was just how to work on a piece of software with a team, and also, how to get started on an unfamiliar project for the first time. And so if anyone has any questions about, the GNOME Outreach Program for Women or about Parsoid, I'd be happy to take them now or later. And that's pretty much it.
Do we have any questions about open source commits? How many people have done their first open source commit? A couple of hands. Great. Thank you very much. So Kirsty is a partner at Y Combinator, which is a top accelerator organization. She's advised hundreds of startups on incorporation, investment, operations, finance, and product design. Prior to joining YC, Kirsty was an auditor for PricewaterhouseCoopers, where she worked with tech and biotech companies ranging from small startups to post-IPO multinational organizations. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name's Kirsty and I'm talking about what makes a great founder. So any one of you in this room can be a great founder, but only if that's what you decide to do. And you may decide that what you want to do is to be an early employee at a company or to start a lifestyle business. And by lifestyle business, what I mean is a company that doesn't take outside funding from investors and grows more organically and doesn't have that pressure in the same way to get exponential growth. And to be clear, this is not a second best option after a startup. People can have amazing lives doing lifestyle companies. But the important thing is that you think about what it is that you want to do and why, and not just do something because it's the latest cool thing that's happening. Because let's face it, startups are hard. They're really hard. And you have to be the right kind of person and to be in it for the right reasons to be a success. So startups live and die by their founders far more than by their idea. Ideas morph, they change, they pivot, they even pirouette sometimes. But changing your founding team, that's kind of harder. Swapping founders in and out is a really, really tough thing. And a huge amount's been talked about what makes a good team and how teams work well together. But what about the individual founder? So a lot's talked about technical skills, and one of the things that worry first-time founders is that, I have to have a CS degree from Stanford or else I'm never going to be a successful founder. And actually, that's not true. If you have a level of intelligence and a basic level of skill, anything else that you need to learn as part of the company, you can learn as you go. You don't need to have all that ability at the beginning. So I'm in a room full of women who code. So I reckon we've got this. So let's move on. So really, the important thing is getting stuff done. And everybody can talk about ideas, and they can talk about what they're going to do, and they can do all these things that feel like work, you know, checking Hacker News about what's going on with their competitors, or meeting somebody for coffee because they're, you know, it's useful for networking. But actually getting stuff done, sitting down and really concentrating, takes a lot of motivation and discipline. And this isn't the glamorous part of startups. This is the bit where you're actually making something people want. And the successful founders are the ones that will talk about something one week, and maybe a day or a week later will have actually implemented it and got it into the hands of users who are now giving them feedback so that the ideas can be improved. Which brings me on to the next point. Good founders need to be decisive. So I often talk to founders when I'm working with them, and they ask me, oh, we don't know whether to do X or Y, which should we do? You know, if I knew the answer to that, I would be the most successful person in the world. And, you know, there often isn't a clear answer. And so the important thing for founders is to just make a decision and try it and build it and see what happens and really keep your eye on it so that if you realize very quickly that it isn't working, you can do something else to make it work and move on that way. Determination is another key thing for startup founders. This is Adora Chung of Homejoy, and she's got a great story of determination. So when she started Homejoy, she decided that part of what she needed to do was go and join a cleaning company. Homejoy offers cleaning services homes. She decided she was going to go and join one of these big old companies that have been around for tens of years to learn about the process and what happens there. So what she'd do is she would start her shift at 7 in the morning in San Francisco. She would spend the day cleaning. She would finish and drive back down to Mountain View where she lived, where she would then start working on a product and writing all the code and doing everything else that she needed to do. She'd then get back in a car at 3 in the morning to drive back from Mountain View to San Francisco so she could avoid the traffic, so it was minimizing the amount of dead time she had. Then sleep in her car in the morning, then go to McDonald's to clean her teeth and get ready for her shift again, and start the whole process again at 7 in the morning. That is what it takes. Another way to think of determination as well is to be unflappable. You know, startups are always on the verge of dying, and even multiple times per day you can think a startup is dying for one reason or another. But a good founder just keeps going and keeps looking for that thing that is going to work, that's going to solve the problems. And not everything does work, which is why a founder also needs toughness. So founders have to face rejection all the time from loads of different places. They might have users who refuse to pay for their product or even refuse to use their product. They have parents and relatives, friends saying, when are you going to get a proper job with health insurance? Or they have investors refusing to invest in their companies. But you need to have that ability to not take that personally. You know, you've got two choices. You can either take it personally, really internalize that stuff, and probably give up because of the sheer pressure and it's not that much fun, or you can find a coping mechanism. I can't tell you what that coping mechanism is because everybody's different, but it's so, so important to find what that is, whether it's yoga or writing short stories or anything. You have to find something. But then, you know, you've got to be in it to win it. So the real key thing here is don't give up. This is Jessica Ma from Indinero, and she has a great story of not giving up. So she started Indinero in 2010, and by 2011, she had an outwardly successful company. She'd raised a lot of money, she had a lot of employees, she had people paying for a product. She even had a hot tub in her office. But then she sat down and realized that in order to become a $1 billion company, she needed to have the number of small businesses using Indeniro was more than the number of small businesses that even are in the US. She realized at that point she was failing. So she didn't give up. What she decided to do was a really hard decision. She fired all her employees. She took out a loan from her parents because she'd burnt through all of the money she'd raised on hot tubs and things. She sat down and figured out a solution for something that users would value more than the original product, and that they would therefore pay more, and so she would need less users to get her to that mythical $1 billion company. And the thing here is, if she'd have given up at that point, she would have had no chance of a successful company, whereas now she has a chance. And fast forward to January of 2014, she's got 50 employees again, and she had her first profitable month. So she's well on the way to that, being successful. So, as a recap, we've talked about getting stuff done and being decisive and being determined. So, can all of these things be learnt? Well, I think they can. I think they can be learnt and they can be practiced. And, one of the things, if you make the decision that these are the things that you're going to have, you've already kind of started to show these traits just by doing that. So even if you don't feel that you have all of these at the beginning, there's that great saying, to fake it till you make it. And this is a great time to do it. So if any of you have any questions or you want to talk to me later or email me anything, then I'm more than happy to answer any questions that any of you have. Thank you.
Does anyone have a question for Kirsty?
There's a fine line between being determined and building something that no one wants. So how do you advise people on that?
Yeah, there's a few different things. So the key thing here is to be talking to your users. And if your users are saying, we're not using this, we're not going to pay for it, we don't care about this, that's kind of giving you the answer. And I'm talking about determination in terms of not giving up, rather than determination in terms of, no, I am going to build this and you will use it whether you want to or not. There's that kind of difference. But it's all about, working with the people who are going to pay for it.
So thank you very much. Just to a quick announcement. At the end, after the final presentation, we're going to have about 10 minutes. So if you've been thinking, gosh, I wish I had gotten to give a talk, I have an announcement to make. If you want to come up and do a 1-minute lightning talk, please just line up here in the center, and we'll just go really, really fast and try and get as many people in 10 minutes. So go ahead and plan to do that. So our next speaker is Michele. She is the CTO of Women Who Code. Woo! She's also an amazing iOS engineer, and she's done national and international speaking, so we're very lucky to have her here this evening.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michele Totolo. I'm an iOS engineer, and I'm CTO of Women Who Code, doing a lot of really awesome stuff. So I'm going to talk tonight about how to make APIs that don't suck. This is a topic near and dear to my heart. As a mobile engineer, pretty much every app that I've shipped to the App Store, and I've shipped over a dozen, they all connect to a web service. They all connect to an API. So these are really important. So for those of you that might be new, an API, for the sake of this presentation, is going to refer to any way that your software can communicate with a different piece of software. So 2 independent servers, a mobile app connecting to a backend, anything like that. So let's jump into what I've learned. Lesson 3 is follow conventions. Conventions are really, really super important. They're conventions for a reason. They're clearly documented and they have community support. They're a way that you can go through and write your code in a way that in 2 months and 6 months and a year from now, someone else can read and understand really clearly. And hopefully they stick around for a while, because there's, a lot of changes and evolutions in software, but there are some things that don't change. And obviously you're probably not going to be, ripping your code base out in 2 years. So you want to stick with conventions. With APIs, this usually means things like how you're doing your URL schemes, how are you handling headers, how are you handling authentication, and keeping that consistent over the entirety of your application so that, new Android developer comes in and is like, what is this? Why are you doing OAuth over here and HTTP basic auth over here? This makes no sense. So, conventions will save you time because they're already out there in the community. There's open source projects that use them. People understand them. Conventions therefore save you money because time is money. And conventions make developers happy because then we can talk to each other, we can talk to the community, we can give talks to the community, and just have a really good presence. Next lesson, don't be clever. It's true. I've seen a lot of really clever things. Developers really like showing off how smart we are. I don't know. Everyone just likes it. But being clever is a pitfall because it's not a simple solution. It's a very, very specific solution that might be a little bit overcomplicated. And when you're making an API, chances are you're not the person that's going to be using that. Chances are it's going to get handed off to someone else. It might be made public at some point, in which case there might be, hundreds of people who have no idea what your backend infrastructure looks like, so they don't quite understand why you made the decision that you made. So making things as simple as possible is going to help out. So this involves being smart, obviously, being really concise in terms of your documentation and just, how many times do I need to make an API call to get this data? Do I have the worst thing on a mobile app is you load a screen and you just see the little spinner that just keeps going and going and going and you're like, when is this going to stop? It's because the app is probably making 2 or 3 API calls and, you have 3G servers, you're going into a tunnel, you're going in and out of airplane mode, there's all these problems. So being concise is important. And obviously don't be clever. Lesson 1, document, document, document. I cannot tell you how many times I've done about 3 years of consulting work. So I've worked with a lot of companies who don't have APIs. And they'll be like, yeah, we have an API. We could totally make this app. You get into the starting of the project. You're like, okay, what's your API documentation? They're like, oh, can't you just look in the code base? And you're just like, no. I want a list of things that I can do and how they all work and how they work together, because it costs me time as a developer to have to go through your code base and have to kind of figure out. And then, even if it's not a mobile person, even if you're doing something that's service oriented on the back end, you have 2 different servers. You probably might have 2 different teams working on those, and they need to know how to talk to each other. Because software is a community effort. It's not one person working in a void. It's making all of these different connections, and documentation helps with that. So, lesson 1 summary is just write documentation, please. And finally, expect the unexpected. We're software engineers, we start at 0. So yes, there's more. So one of the things I've learned as a mobile engineer is that whatever you build now in terms of your services, in terms of your infrastructure, it's not going to go away. So it's going to be used in ways that you did not intend. As a mobile engineer, I've reused APIs that were built for backbone sites. I've reused APIs that were made for AJAX calls that only ever return a 200, even when things are not okay. So if you go through and you expect the unexpected, you kind of you document, you make things robust, and you are not clever, you can go through and make everything. So lesson 0 summary, expect the unexpected. All you need to do is follow conventions, don't be clever, and write lots of documentation. So that's all I had. Thanks.
Do we have a question about building APIs? Thank you so much, Michele. So Ginny is the co-founder and CTO of Wanderable. She graduated from Stanford with a CS degree. She also spent 6 years working at Amazon Web Services, so she's got expertise in crowdsourcing, payments, and large infrastructures. So she uses this to build safe, secure, and a scalable, to build Wanderable in a safe and secure and scalable way.
Hey, so I'm Jenny, and today I'm just going to be talking about 3 lessons that I've learned since starting Wanderable. And at Wanderable, we help people buy and gift experiences to someone they love. So right now, our main focus is honeymoon registries, where a couple can put a wish list of all the awesome things they want to do on their honeymoon, and then their friends can buy them these as a gift. So it's stuff like scuba diving lessons in Hawaii, or an elephant ride in Thailand, or say a cooking class in Spain. And so my co-founder and I, Marcella, we started this about 3 years ago when we were just, the two of us sitting on our couch coding away. And it's just been really cool to see how the company's grown since then and the really awesome team that we have. Every week we're onboarding over 100 new activities and we're making partnerships with merchants all around the world. And so it's just been really cool to see things grow. And I just wanted to share with you guys some of the lessons that we've learned since then. Oh, these are some activities. It's pretty. I'm not the designer, so my slides are going to be very, very kind of janky looking. Yeah. But so lesson number 1, and this echoes, what Kirsty's talking about. You want to build something that people want and care about. When we first started Wanderable, we had 3 things going because we're like, we'll figure out product market fit. We don't know what we're doing, but something will work. And one day we were pushing out new DNS settings and managed to bring the site down. And I went into my, oh my God, must fix this right now mode, because at Amazon, all the engineers carry around pagers, and if the site goes down, the pager goes off, and you fix it right now. Like, this is important. You don't do anything else, you fix it right now. And so I was like, oh my God, the site's down. I have to fix it right now. So I did. It took a while. But I realized in retrospect that that actually wasn't the real problem. Because in the time that the site was down, nobody contacted us, nobody emailed us, right? That means nobody's using this, nobody really cares. So lesson number 1, build something that people care about. We took a look at the 3 projects we were running and we're like, okay, so what can we do with each? And we decided to pivot and focus specifically on honeymoon registries because this was the one that was getting the most usage. People were actually emailing us saying, I want to do this, why can't I do that? And so since then we started focusing on it and, you start getting the customer feedback and figuring out what it is people really want to use. So, second lesson is don't be afraid to try new things. When you join a startup, you are going to be coding, but that's not the only thing you're going to be doing. For example, we actually crashed bridal showers, bridal shows, and started talking to brides to find out, market research until we got kicked out. We do experiments on the site now where every week we play King of the Hill. So you might have an option like, say, a card in a box, and the incumbent is 3 card choices, and we see, which one does better. So as you do things incrementally, week over week, if you get a small increase, maybe say 10%, it's kind of small, but week over week, if you are able to bump up the metrics a little bit higher, in the long run, you start seeing, that up and to the right graph. And so, be okay to try out and experiment with new things. And, it might not work. You'll probably fail. A lot of things won't work out, but you'll learn from that and be able to build on that. Third lesson is, if you can, go on a trip with your team. Joining a startup or, co-founding a team, you really have to make sure that you get to know who these people are. And so you really you're able to figure out how they tick. And that's very similar to going on a trip. Because when you go on a trip, things happen. You might run low on funding. You might get lost. You might get really tired. And so think of it as like, say you're going to Disneyland. You're going to figure out what people are interested in. Some people, when they go to Disneyland, all they care about are the rides. I'm going on this ride. I'm taking that speed pass. I'm running over here and going on that ride. Other people will say, I just want to chill out in the beer garden at Epcot Center and just relax. I'm on my vacation, right? And so you really start to get a sense of what people's values are and how they work. And so you learn really important things like who on your team tends to get hangry and who you need to give snacks to. So, last lesson. Yeah, and so just really appreciate you guys having me here, and thank you very much. Any questions?
Any questions?
I do have a question. I'm just curious, how did you guys do the marketing research or the user demand of your site before you start to build this thing?
Actually, we didn't do that. We built it in 2 weeks, threw it out there, started seeing if people would start using it. There's a bunch of wedding blogs out there. There's a couple, about 10 or so that are really big major wedding blogs, so we got posted on those. So that started getting some of the initial word out. We tried all sorts of things, wedding blogs, wedding magazines. We've gone to bridal shows. This time we're an actual vendor. We didn't sneak in anymore. So you can't sneak in a booth, right? If you're going to be there and have a booth, you actually have to be a legit vendor. Oh, sorry about that. And so we tried a bunch of things but really it's, get something out there fast into the hands of your users, see if they want to use it. Right, and then you'll be able to iterate and find out, actually, we've thrown out features that nobody really used. We've thrown out features that some people used, but it was too expensive because we were manually building things on the back. So we upped the price. We're like, hey, will you pay $100 for this? Right, so you have to be flexible and start adapting and just throw stuff out and see if people use it. Make sure it's not a terrible experience because you do have a brand to upkeep. But just be able to experiment with stuff.
How long did it take you to build something that people wanted? Like at first, nobody was really using your site. So what was that time period?
So when you do that, you do need to give it some time to bake. So honeymoon registries we built in 2 weeks, tossed it out there, got the blog posts up, and then we kind of waited to see what things start happening. In the meantime, we were building these 2 other things that just didn't kind of pan out. But you'll start seeing growth eventually, and then you'll see who are your noisiest people and what pockets they're coming from, and that will start telling you like where people care, because where people care is really where you should be building. Yeah.
Thank you. So we have a very special guest who's come all the way here from Belfast to be with us today. Sheree is the founder of Women Who Code UK, and she's doing a phenomenal job for us over there. She's a software engineer at Kane, and they've been a fantastic support for her as well, being our primary sponsor in the United Kingdom.
So, hi everybody. I'm firstly going to apologise for my accent because I know some people here aren't going to understand what I'm saying. So I'm Sheree Atcheson. I'm at Nirashika on Twitter if you're that way inclined. I'm going to take you through just taking an idea from inception to execution and just sort of some of the things I've came across and some of the impact that Women Who Code UK has already had in this short amount of time. So who am I? I'm a computer science graduate, so I came into software engineering, the sort of standard way that most people come in. So I did a computer science degree at Queen's University Belfast, which is one of the top universities in Belfast. So I was very lucky sort of to get into there as I did. So I did 4 years computer science and did placement with Kane. Kane are one of the leading software engineering solution houses in the UK, and we're one of the Sunday Times top 100 companies to work for. We do a lot of amazing work in the healthcare industry and in the government digital services, and so we're entirely reworking the entire solutions that the government use to make it a lot easier for everyday people to do the everyday things they need to do. So as well as that, I am the founder of Women Who Code UK. So that sounds like a cool title. As well as that sort of covers off 2 locations so far. So I cover Belfast and London and soon to be Bristol and all over England and soon to be Scotland as well. So Women Who Code UK. So I started this last September was when I began to talk to Alaina about this, and it sort of grew very, very quickly. So with Belfast, which is where I am based, we've had every event that we have is completely packed out with a waiting list. So already that sort of shows that the impact that it has had. Now Belfast is obviously substantially smaller than San Francisco, and the number of women in the tech industry in Belfast is around 19%. So it's very, very low. So I never expected so many people to come together so quickly. So within 2 weeks of me opening Women Who Code Belfast and listing our first event, in 3 days it was sold out. When I say sold out, it's free. It just packed out right away. But within 2 months of me starting Women Who Code Belfast, The Guardian, which I'm sure most of you know, which is one of the leading sort of newspapers all around the world, recognised us as one of Belfast's most influential startups. which was pretty cool. So we got to be in cool photo and all of that stuff, which you'll see later. So I'm in this photo with all of these amazing people, and then I'm sitting at the front. So obviously, as Belfast started to take off, I got lots of inquiries from people in London and Scotland and Bristol saying, you know, we're not getting any of this action. What's happening? Can we have something? So the next sort of step was to, right, well, okay, I can do London too. So luckily, Kane, which are hugely supportive of this, have given me time and money to do this. So they will send me to London when I need to be in London. If I need to meet someone in London, that's totally fine, which is pretty cool because I get some cool trips out of it, like this one, which pretty much here for the whole week just to see stuff, which is kind of cool. For London has gotten substantially bigger than Belfast already. So we have over 240 members in London in just 3 months with no PR other than me tweeting and magazines contacting us. So magazines like Computer Weekly, Wired UK have all contacted me about this. And through Women Who Code London, I am now an official blogger for Computer Weekly. So that means Women Who Code will be regularly injected into Computer Weekly, which is pretty cool because they are massive. So again, that means that I have now got connections to all of these different women across the UK. Now, some of these women are really, really influential and obviously much more important than what I am. And so they've founded their own companies, they hire X amount of people, and because of that now I'm able to share their stories. There is a problem in the UK that women may know of Sheryl Sandberg and all of these big names, but they don't know of the local women. So I might turn on the TV and I see Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook and I'm like, oh, she's cool, she's done something cool, but do I really feel attached to her? She doesn't have my accent, she isn't from 20 miles down the road from me. Whereas I want to share the stories of local women who have done something equally as cool. Fame is not a prerequisite to be a role model. And because I can showcase their stories now, that means that young girls and obviously people in the industry can then be inspired by people that have done something very similar to what they want to do. So again, because this has all happened very quickly, it's quite cool that I've now sort of all women in tech events across the UK are associated with me. So I have all of these requests to speak at different things and go to all of these different places, which then means Women Who Code is at all of these different places, which is really, really cool. So that's through all of those connections, through those 500 women who then have millions of connections, and I can now avail of all of that stuff. So I want to show you just some of the cool things that Women Who Code UK has sort of came across. I hope this text comes up okay. That's really hard to see. The main sort of impact from this is a lot of people have written their own blogs, people I don't know apart from attendees, and they've stated that they'd never attended any tech events in Belfast. They'd always wanted to. And then Women Who Code Belfast came along, and now they go to tech events all over Belfast, and they're now a mentor in Coder Dojo Belfast. And that's a pretty big step to take someone who was not entirely comfortable going to any event. They didn't really know why, they just weren't. And now from going to, I think it's maybe 4 Women Who Code events, they're going and hosting events, and they're going out into environments where they're entirely out of their comfort zone, which is totally what this is about. This is another, that's really, oh, you can see that one a bit better. This is from another blog from a guy called Matt Johnson, now in Belfast. He runs a lot of things to do with Coder Dojo, and he does a lot of work to get guys and girls into programming, and he has been hugely supportive of what we've done. Now, for someone like him to say that it's one of the best things to happen to NI tech scene in just 4 months is absolutely huge, and the support of these people has brought Women Who Code UK to where it is today. So this guy, I don't know if you've ever heard of Brewbot, but Brewbot is a bot that brews beer. It is exactly what it says on the tin, and this guy is amazing. They're very soon going to be hitting that millionaire pot, and he's a local guy. He's from Belfast, and again, recognition for people like him has brought Women Who Code UK to all of these different people. Now, I'm just 23, and I've only just graduated last year, so the point is, if I can do this, anybody here can do this pretty much, because I am nothing like exceptional in that field. It is just determination and drive that has brought this sort of thing about. Again, we've been featured in lots of newspapers, local and in England. Excuse the really cheesy title that they have given me here for Programme to Work. It was almost going to be, it's cool to be in the IT crowd, but I said, please don't write that up. I can't cope. Yeah. So, yeah, that was changed. So, again, recognition in big Irish and Northern Irish papers. A as an awful photo, but someone took it in the audience. So in Belfast and Dublin now, the mayors are very, very important. Now, I've obviously never thought I was going to be put in contact with the mayor of Belfast. That's a pretty big deal. Now, the mayor has now contacted me. Now, this was at an event to showcase Belfast to Dublin and the UK. So this was to show Belfast as a leading tech spot. And I was asked to speak personally about Women Who Code UK to hundreds of hugely important people, politicians, all that sort of thing. And in the north of Ireland, politics is very important. So that's a pretty big deal to get that sort of on my shoulders. Again, this is the sort of feedback that we're getting. People are coming to us because it's a safe learning environment and it's non-judgmental. Sorry. That same woman who said that quote said that she was constantly yo-yoing about coming to the event. She didn't want to come by herself. She was worried she wouldn't know anybody. And then she was like, screw it, I'm going to come anyway. And then she came up to me at the event personally, like she had never spoken to me before. And even just being able to do that has shown that the event has made her feel safe. It's made her feel welcome. And she's now she signed up until I think it's to her next 3 London events. And that was our first London event. So for people to sort of take that step without even knowing what they're going to get is pretty cool. And this is proof. Like, I know text sometimes just seems like I'm saying it, but this is people that have never met each other, all working together to learn Ruby and come together and sort of figure out a problem because someone's having an issue. So that's what Women Who Code is about, I'm guessing. Like, again, politics is very important in the north of Ireland. And this guy here, now he's a pretty big deal in politics, is Basil McRae. I know you won't know who he is, but to get his support is a really, really big deal because that opens huge doors for Women Who Code UK. I've already Stormont in Northern Ireland is this huge place where all those sort of politics people hang out, sit together and talk about a lot of stuff. And I've been invited to host a Women Who Code event there. Now, that's a huge deal. People don't ordinarily get to do that unless they're in politics or they're very, very wealthy, and I am none of those things. So again, because Women Who Code has made such a big impact and it is getting to politicians, now that's a really high level for something like this, to just sort of come in and sort of just punch them in the face and say, you know, wake up, we're here. So you can see Alaina here, over in the corner. This is probably one of the proudest things I have about Women Who Code UK. So this was at Beltech, which is at the Belfast Tech Conference, and we inspired, Women Who Code UK inspired an organisation called the IET, which is the Institute of Engineering and Technology, to look at all of the top students, or all of the top girls across the north of Ireland, and obviously choose the best ones that were the best innovators, the best thinkers, and look at them and showcase them to the mayor and to all of these people who came to celebrate Women Who Code Belfast and give them an award. So we're bringing down this. It's not just women now, obviously. This is inspiring young girls, and that's what Women Who Code Belfast has done. So it's gotten so big that we're inspiring these huge organisations to finally notice, yes, girls need to be inspired. There's not enough girls choosing tech, therefore we don't have enough women choosing tech, and it's an issue for everybody. So to have that sort of impact to actually affect a young girl's life and sort of show her, yeah, what you're doing is actually important. It's not just a hobby that you're sitting coding in your room for the crack. It's something important. And again, just a few wee snippets of feedback. It's all, like, I see this on the San Francisco site as well. It's all that same point of it's welcoming. I don't feel judged. I can walk in and I don't care that I don't know anybody. I'm happy to sit down beside someone. Like, I sat down at that table in the back and I think 6 people came up and just sat down and shook my hand and said who they were. Now, I don't know if that happens in all of the meetups in San Francisco or whatever, but people don't necessarily feel comfortable going to that and just sitting down. And I think that's the point that Women Who Code is sort of putting across. Again, this is before the Belfast Tech Conference. So this was the first ever conference Belfast has had, and Kane, again, was the curator of this. So I was very lucky to be the panel host. So we have Alaina, Mary McKenna, who is a far leader in the tech industry in London, and Emma Mulqueeny. Now, both of these women do a lot of work to get young kids into coding, to get graduated students jobs, so as they're not sitting about and having degrees that are not getting any paid for, they're not working somewhere that they're hugely overqualified for. So all 4 of us are all working in that area to try and sort of give something back. And it was really, really cool to be a part of that panel. And again, this wouldn't have happened only for Women Who Code UK. It's a very fancy photo of me talking. And this is the Guardian photo. Now, these people have all been in this industry for X amount of years, and like this is the Brewbot guy, this is the CTO of Kane. Now he's a big deal. All of these people are huge. This is the guy, Matt Johnson. Now these are the people that were showcasing NI Tech and showcasing Belfast as a leader in the tech industry, and to be asked to be in that photo and to be in the Titanic drawing rooms is a huge deal. Like that, even just being in that room was kind of a big deal, never mind being in the photo. And again, this was all over the Guardian, the Observer and the Irish News, the Newsletter, all of the big UK papers. So again, I've just sort of wanted to show this because I've only done this in a few months, and again, as I said, if I can do this, anybody here definitely can. So that's me.
So thank you so much. That was an amazing presentation, and I think it just really speaks to the work that Women Who Code is doing. I have to remind myself often that running this organization, San Francisco is not the most important place in the world, and the work that we're doing around the country and around the world is so important. And Sheree being here just really speaks to what we're trying to do. And so when I say, hey, please tweet that we are trying to do fundraising, that allows us to expand internationally and nationally. And what that does is helps us reach our goal of connecting 5 million women in the tech industry by 2019. So if people could go ahead and just line up here if you have a quick announcement to make, and we'll do our 1-minute lightning talks. And remember, please be thoughtful of the women who are coming behind you, because we'll only have so much time. All right, we'll go ahead and get started.
Hello. Hi, my name is Ashley. I'm a software engineer at Lyft. I only started coding about 2 years ago. I never coded ever before that, and I decided I wanted to be an engineer, and I did it. My short lightning talk is I've recently been doing a project in Python 3.4, and it's like living in the future, and it's so exciting. So I just want to encourage everyone this weekend, try a new language, try a new version of a language you know, try something new, and it's really fun, and it'll get you all fired up. Also, if you're interested in opportunities, we hire for everything at Lyft, so come talk to me.
Wow, that's really weird because I'm an engineer at Lyft too, but it's the other Lyft. It's with an I. My name's Alicia Tweet on Twitter, and I gave a lightning talk last year around this time on overcoming imposter syndrome, and then I wrote a blog post about it on Medium, and like tens of thousands of people read it, and I got to talk to a lot of people about it. And one thing that kept coming up over and over was that I think women are seriously like underestimating themselves, and a lot of you might be learning how to code or going for your first job as a programmer. And I just want to encourage you to really do not underestimate yourself. You guys are doing really cool stuff, and there's tons of guys out there who are not that good, but they just have like a reputation, like they look like Mark Zuckerberg, so people just think they're good. Like seriously, it happens a lot. So do not underestimate yourself. You guys are doing awesome stuff, and we're hiring too.
Hi, my name is Stacy Hartman, and I'm here representing a very small film production company, and we're producing a documentary film called Code, Debugging the Gender Gap. And it is exposing, not that you all need to know that it needs to expose, but the dearth of women and minorities in programming, and explores all of the variety of reasons that is so. And it begs the question, what would society look like? What will it look like when there are more female coders and minorities coding? So keep an eye out for it. I wish I had our teaser to show it to you, but we will have it soon. Our website is getting up. It's a little buggy, but it's at codedocumentary.com. And we will we will very much enjoy sharing it with all of you soon.
Hi, I'm Georgia. I'm one of the organizers for Women Who Code San Francisco's Ruby and Rails meetup, Ruby Tuesdays. And aside from the fact that if you're at all interested in Ruby or Rails, you should come to that. We have an opportunity for longer than 1 minute lightning talks. At the beginning of all of our meetups, we aim to do 5, you can go a little longer if you really want to, talks on anything in the full Ruby Rails stack. It doesn't even have to be about Ruby. It could be about JavaScript, something cool that you did at work that you think everybody needs to know about, or even just like, I used to not code and now I code and this is how I got here and it's awesome and you can all do it too. So talk to me if you're interested. We're almost every Tuesday at different places in San Francisco. At Twitter, because that might be easier if you forget or you don't find me tonight, it's &_Georgia, or Alaina knows me, or a lot of the other organizers know me.
Hi, I'm Anne. I'm a teacher and a partner at devbootcamp.com, and I want to talk to you about 3 things. So the first thing is that we're in a brand new space about 3 blocks away on 633 Folsom, and we're really excited because we now have room to host meetups. So if anybody's holding meetups and wants to host in the evenings or the weekends, contact me. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I want to talk about is because we're in this brand new space, we're also doing a Thursday night speakers series. And I would love, love, love for some of the women who always inspire me here to come and inspire my female students. So if you have any interest in speaking in a longer format, please contact me for that. We would love to have you. And the third and final thing is that we are currently at about 25% women students, and I want that to be 50% or more. So if you're interested in learning how to code and doing it in an intensive and hugely supportive environment, Dev Bootcamp is the place, and contact me if you want more information. So I'm Anne, A-N-N-E, at Dev Bootcamp, and would love to hear from any of you. Thanks.
Thank you so much to everyone for coming. Thank you very much to Yelp for hosting us again. And one last person, if they wouldn't mind raising their hand, Irit, who's also the co-founder of Women Who Code Israel, also happens to be in the audience tonight. And if there are any other co-founders from around the world in the audience who are here, and I haven't gotten to say hello to you yet, or wave your hand and we can make an announcement, because I know there's one more in the city right now, so I was just checking. All right, well, thank you very much. We have another half hour, so please, you can go back around the corner, talk to our speakers, talk to each other, come talk to me. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.